Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
I can hear what you're thinking, all your doubts and fears.
Oh man, they should
If you look in my eye, in time you'll find.
Whoa,
the reason
you dropped out
I'm
for a
here.
sec? You there?
Yep, I'm back.
Okay. Yeah, they should rekindle. If nothing else, we can show.
That's right. Well, I mean, that makeup sex was really good.
Yeah. And on that note, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Super2. Joining me today is the one, the only, the realist, the Mannosist, the real Mannose.
Hello, everyone. I am that person he just explained.
Indeed, you are. Hi, Mannose. Thanks for joining me today.
Not too bad. How are you? I just got off work and I'm here. Here we go.
Yeah. Here we go. So, Mannose, what are we talking about today?
Well, we were going to talk about the Punisher, but I'm kind of into this idea of this fan fiction sex story about Pamela and Skype. You know,
it's really funny. Every time someone says, it's just become second nature in the whole podcasting community that Pamela is the Skype recording program. So No one ever feels the need to explain that whenever they talk about problems. They're just like, oh, Pamela screwed up. But not everybody knows what Pamela is. So a lot of the time, what'll happen is people will go, who's Pamela? What, they didn't record? What, you got another person recording everything? That's weird. Like, I remember my wife, when we first started dating, she got, really annoyed with me at one point because she thought that I was just talking to another woman for hours at a time. She goes, well, why would you even want to be on an episode if you're not going to record? And why are you talking to her for? I'm like, no, Pamela's the program.
Yeah.
And no one ever gets that. It's really funny. You can actually go look at the comments on that podcast Cap and Dan did about the comics industry, and you can see someone sitting there like, who's Pamela? And I had to explain it to him. It was really funny. But no, we are going to talk about the Punisher, Frank Castle. Frank Castle is one of those characters who's, everyone's kind of aware of the Punisher. Everyone has varying degrees of feelings on the Punisher. I kind of like him in a very particular way. Not at all in the same way that I like Batman or basically any other superhero. I find the Punisher to be a fascinating character. More than I find myself liking the Punisher, if that makes sense. But Mannose, on the other hand, Mannose fucking hates the Punisher.
Yes.
So I thought it'd be interesting to have someone who just outright does not like this character do one of these character discussions. So Mannose, since you got the more interesting opinion, I feel, what is it about the Punisher that you hate?
I have always viewed this character as a Spider-Man villain. A Spider-Man villain that got really popular. And he seemed to really kind of take off in the 80s during that whole kind of Rambo fetishism that a lot of conservatives had. And, hey, everyone wants to be cool, and this guy kills bad guys, and he does it in a badass look, and he's got a cool costume. So, yeah. Then the history kind of wrote itself from that point. But my first introduction to this character was I actually bought a reprint of Marvel Tales Spider-Man, which was the first Punisher issue. And he's an asshole in that. He's a villain in that. And he is this guy who is like a costume character, but he goes that step further and kills people as an example of what not to do. And he's also, by the way, in that story, a stupid ass, because the Jackal comes to him and tells him Spider-Man needs to be taken out, and here's evidence, and you should go get him. And he looks at the Jackal and he goes, "Yeah, okay, you seem like a trustworthy person." in your green costume and acting all evil and shit. You're obviously one of the good guys, so let me go kill Spider-Man. Yeah, he's a dipshit in that story. And then cut to a few years later, Frank Miller obviously makes him really popular in a brief stint in Daredevil. He shows up in some really excellent issues, and he handles them very well. And I think that really kind of like started things. He also had appearances in, I believe it is, one of Marvel's adult magazines that they were doing in the 80s, I think under Epic, in black and white. And so they were able to really just go hog wild with the character, and that really kind of like cemented him. Here's the thing. As a villain, he's actually a pretty fascinating character. When Chuck Dixon got to do a Punisher Batman crossover, he said it was unfortunate that Punisher is a Marvel character, not a DC character, because he would have made a great Batman villain.
And we kind of got that years later, for a while at least, with Jason Todd.
Jason Todd, who I also hate. And but the fact is, Jason Todd, like the Punisher, isn't a villain, isn't treated like a villain. He's also like a badass anti-hero good guy who's willing to go that one step further that the heroes don't dare. Fuck that shit. I'm so over that. Fuck Punisher in that attitude. Fuck Jason Todd in that attitude. Here's the thing. Like, see, the explanation over and over again with the Punisher being a good bad guy. Excuse me. A good guy, and to be that type that goes that one step further and he's more efficient. The idea is like, oh, your bad guys go to jail, then come back out and hurt more people. I make them stay dead. I'm like, bullshit. Nothing. Your bad guys still come back. There are still some that get killed, just like anybody. Batman and Spider-Man also have villains that get killed, usually by mistake or something like that. But I mean, Punisher has guys that escape, and oh hey, you know what? There's also the idea is there's less collateral damage with the Punisher killing bad guys than there are with Spider-Man and Batman like not killing them, which is the opposite of reality. Look, there's no way you can convince me that killing people creates less collateral damage than not killing people. There's no evidence to prove that because
Well, I think it's really interesting to jump in on that with the story Punisher Max Kingpin, wherein Punisher does have this logic that, like, on one level, it always goes back. Batman should just kill the Joker so the Joker can't keep escaping from Arkham and killing people. And like on some level that makes sense, but like Punisher Max Kingpin does a really interesting story where that's not so much a Punisher story as it is a Kingpin origin. Yeah. Because in that, Punisher has been taking out the mob for like years and years, just like eliminating people from the mob on various levels. And Wilson Fisk is just a bodyguard working for one of these guys. And he kind of like whispers in his boss's ear about creating this idea of a boss of bosses, a kingpin, to send the Punisher off on a wild goose chase for, so that the other members of the mob can just operate. And so the mob colludes, like all these mob families collude their resources in that book and create the role of the kingpin. And then Frank Castle kills all of those guys, and Wilson Fisk steps in and takes over for all of them collectively as the kingpin.
Yeah.
So it was just a really neat idea to subvert those ideas of, oh, well, he doesn't create, problems, he ends them. No, like, killing people is just a more violent way of kicking a can down a road to create this problem later on. It's like, there are levels to these things. And I mean, there's also just the other factual matter of Batman's never going to kill the Joker because the Joker's a popular character.
Yeah, well, let's be real about that, yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, I think that's one of the reasons Punisher has kind of suffered in the books over the years is, like, Well, like, he doesn't really have any staying villains in a big way. Like, he's kind of always got a thing with Kingpin, but, like, Kingpin's a lot of people's villains. He's not a Punisher villain, so Punisher can't kill him for business reasons. All of, like, the interesting characters that have been introduced as Nemesis for the Punisher over the years, I mean, if you're writing the Punisher, honestly, he has to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way around it.
Yeah, there's also Jigsaw who shows up a lot. I don't know if he's currently dead or not. I haven't seen Jigsaw in forever.
Yeah, and I don't, like... So what, you got one major villain that somehow keeps surviving, and just how good could those stories keep being then, right?
Yeah, it's like, well, hey, yeah, your killing policy isn't working too well. We still got Kingpin, and we still got Jigsaw. Mm-hmm. What happened to, Mr. Fish and Killer there? I think as a villain, I think he's fantastic. I think because he does challenge heroes in that way, and he's also a grim reminder of what they could be, and I think that's what he was originally intended for before he got super popular. Mm-hmm. As a hero, I think he's awful, and I just think he's a terrible, terrible choice to be a villain. A hero.
And I tend to agree. I don't like when people write the Punisher as like this justified warrior or anything like that. I like when, again, Punisher Max is a great series that actually deals with the fact that the Punisher just is these monsters that he's out there killing. Like, at one point, Kingpin hires Elektra and the Hand with the intention of having them go after Frank Castle to kill him, and they just flat out refuse to do it because he's too good at killing people for them to want to, like, they find it beautiful. Mm-hmm. And that just speaks volumes about the Punisher. But, like, the fact of the matter is, he is this just lost man who's like, completely lost all sense of morality, and, like, at the end of the day, he's not really saving people. People are caught in the crossfire of the Punisher all the time, and, like, to write him in such a way that they're not just gets to the point where it's like, it's insulting to what makes the character, in my eyes at least, interesting. That he's just so obsessed with his own shit that he doesn't really care about the people caught in the way.
He doesn't, and that's the thing that makes him different than, say, Batman, for instance, who, yeah, he's motivated out of, there's anger and there's revenge, but he doesn't want people hurt. He wants to prevent that from happening. He does have a sense of making the world better. The Punisher does not have that. He is just angry. And it's almost, it's not about saving people anymore. He's just mad. And he is always mad. And he has long killed those people who have messed with his family. And then
there's the interesting thing that's been introduced in the comics over the years that I quite like, and I like exploring this side of the character, that he let his family die on purpose. That, like, part of him, sometimes it varies on how far they take it. Sometimes it's written that he's happy his family died, so he had an excuse to go out and do this.
Wow, that's horrifying.
Yeah, other times it's written in such a way that, like, he purposely went to the park even though he, like, read that there's been a gang war going on in that area, and he was, like, ignoring his, he's got that whole soldier thing of, like, oh, he's looking over his shoulder. He was intentionally not doing that. Like, he basically set up to have the worst possible thing that could happen to a person happen to him so he would have the excuse to go out and kill people.
Is that canon?
It's in various things. Like, there's some things that have it written expressly that way, and then there's other things that don't. It just depends on, like, it seems like everybody does the Punisher's origin again every time you have a new writer jump on him.
Of course, he's like any character.
Yeah. So, like, that's something that I legitimately find fascinating for, like, writing as a character. That was a real person. Fuck this person. But, like, as far as just reading fiction, as harmless as fiction can conceivably be, that is fascinating. It is an interesting idea to explore with the character. The problem is, I agree, a lot of people don't write him like that. A lot of the times people write him as, like, perfectly justified. And
also successful. I mean, he never shoots anybody by accident, any innocent bystanders. Or, hey, he breaks into a drug deal and kills a whole bunch of guys, and oops, like half of them were cops. undercover. Like, I don't know how often that happens in the books. At least not during his golden age.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like, I'm sure somebody's done stuff like that, but that's not what Punisher fans seem to like, is the weird
Of course
thing.
not. No. He has to be perfect and awesome.
Yeah, and that's what I don't like is, I enjoy the Thomas Jane movie because that one kind of humanizes him to a certain degree, and he clearly doesn't enjoy doing this. He plans to kill himself when it's all said and done. That's a different level, and I kind of enjoy aspects of that.
Yeah.
But as far as comic book Punisher goes, no, I the only time I really like the Punisher in the comics is when he knows he's a shitty person, and he is aware of that, but doesn't care and is just doing this because it's what he likes to do.
Yeah. I really enjoyed. I can't remember the name of the actor in the Daredevil season 2 where he appears in.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I can't remember that actor's name. John something.
No, I want to say John DiMaggio. I know that's right.
No, it's not him. But I'll wait for you to Google it.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now.
You Google it really
John
fast.
Berthel.
John Berthel. Okay, John Berthel. I really like the job he did with that character because he has them. I don't know if it was scripted this way or that came out in development, but his sentences are very short.
Mm-hmm.
And, his thoughts are short. Like, that's all he's got. He's not an articulated person. He's not someone who...
He's tactile.
He's tactile. He doesn't have a lot of time to really think about what he does. He is literally kill or be killed. He is kind of like become an animal in a way. And he's monstrous. So, yeah, he's not going to give any, fluid, speeches about how awesome and right he is. No, he's just like, oh, I'm doing this. Yeah. And that's it. I really like that portrayal. I really like a less verbal version of the character. As a hero, yeah, I think he's dreadful. I think he's a terrible example. I think he's an awful character. I think he's an awful person. I think he's an awful hero. He's not a hero. As a villain, I think he is. If they went all the way back and make him a villain, I think he'd be an excellent character again. He's actually a lot like Venom. I think Venom is a shitty hero, but he's a fantastic villain.
Yeah.
Spider-Man has this weird thing where, he has a popular villain and they turn into a hero.
Mm-hmm. And the Venom book was bringing him back to being a villain again for a while, and then I don't know what happened.
Well, the most successful Venom was the Flash Thompson one, who was a good person, and he used Venom for good. Eddie Brock is not a good person. He's a terrible, terrible human being. And I just wish Marvel would just let him be a terrible person instead of this lethal protector bullshit.
But to get back to Punisher, I like the idea of.
I bring up Venom because I think they're very
they're related.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't like the Punisher being a hero. I'm gonna put a major caveat on this. I like him being an anti-hero, with the caveat being that he is actually the anti-part of a hero. That we use that term, we throw it around all the time, but really it just means hero who does badass stuff. That's the way it's used.
Yeah.
Anti-hero is someone who is supposed to be, the structurally is the good guy of the story, but is doing all the wrong things.
Yeah.
That, yes, if you actually write him like an anti-hero, then he's a fascinating character from just a literary standpoint. But I do agree that there is this worship of the Punisher that I find a little disturbing.
Yeah, I do.
He tortures people, and they're criminals, but he still tortures people.
I think he enjoys it.
Oh, definitely.
I mean,
definitely.
I can't. I have to sign off on a hero or anti-hero that enjoys torturing people.
Yeah, and like, it's weird to look at because my friend Bobby was a big fan. He likes the Punisher, and he was a big fan of Dexter when that show was on, and he was like, "Those two should have a crossover." I'm like, "Yes, they should," because like so many people did not get the point of Dexter, including the showrunners after a certain point. Whereas Dexter was an awful person. He was a serial killer. He was just directing it in a way that, like, arguably kind of had a benefit for society, but was still doing awful things.
Yeah.
And, like, even the actor, Michael C. Hall, didn't understand that about the character. Like, he talked about, there are people who watch the show in Europe, and they really don't get that Dexter's at least trying to do the right thing, and they're like, but he kills people. I'm like, yeah, but he kills bad people. But he kills people. I'm like, no, Michael C. Hall, that's all you need. He kills people. He's not a good person. Same with Punisher. Okay, when at the end of the day, if it's self-defense, if it's your life or someone else's on the line, and it's in the moment, you don't have to be fucking Batman and come up with an ingenious solution to throw a batarang and wing it off a pipe and knock the guy out by hitting him in the head. No, that is an unreasonable standard, and we should not hold actual people to it. If
Agreed.
It's like a ridiculous, if it's a scary situation, yes, killing someone is understandable,
yes,
and it is a justifiable thing. That is called justifiable homicide. But Punisher, actively seeks out and murders people in horrific ways. And yes, they're usually people that have done bad things, but no one should ever be, hunted and tortured and murdered. I know that might be a radical stance in this day and age, but no one should be hunted down like an animal, tortured and murdered, in my libtard opinion.
You're just a SJWJ or whatever the fuck they are.
SJW Snowflake.
SJW Snowflake. Don't want people tortured.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing is, I don't like the hero worship that the Punisher receives, and I get why people are really apprehensive about the character in that regard. But I do think that when he's written well, he is a really fascinating character. I will recommend up and down Jason Aaron's Punisher Max series.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't like the Punisher as a person, because that will not help you. That will not, win you over on the character. All that book does is confirm, yeah, he's a really shitty person.
You know what I've done over the years, as I've gotten closer to, becoming a comic book writer, and, my dream would be to write for one of the big two. And once I realized that's something I wanted to do in my life, I instantly realized I will probably be offered my least favorite character, and I'll take it because I want the work. Mm-hmm. So I've gone back and thinking what characters do I hate, and what would I do with them if I got the job? And Punisher always came up. It's I really hate the character he stands. I don't stand for anything he stands for. What would I do if I had to write that book and, and get a paycheck and, and I would have to turn out good work that I would want to be proud of. So I started thinking about it, and I see Marvel kind of doing this here and there when he appears. So it's good to see I wasn't the only one who was thinking about this. But I would definitely treat him as... I would actually, as an inspiration, I would kind of write him like Godzilla. Godzilla isn't a good guy either, but occasionally what he does comes in handy. He's a monster. He's not articulate. He doesn't give you any speeches about how Tokyo and him are very much alike. He just fucking destroys things. And occasionally he destroys things that need to be destroyed. So I would definitely kind of essentially write him like a monster or like a slasher villain, where you would actually get to explore the characters that either he hunts or people affected by him or people trying to catch him. He would be very much important in his own book, but I would probably not even make the stories about him, really. I would make stories where he is the catalyst for the story.
That could be interesting. It's funny. Every time we talk Punisher, I just remember talking to Alex, superhero enthusiast, about this at one point, and he has the single greatest pitch for a Punisher movie I've ever seen, or I've ever heard.
All right.
Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro Punisher movie in the same vein as Taxi Driver.
Yeah, that's great.
Holy shit, that would be amazing. Get De Niro back. Get De Niro to do the whole method acting thing. Make Frank a veteran of Vietnam that's been doing this for decades. That could be absolutely fascinating in the most horrific way.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, De Niro would have made a great Punisher. And, well, I mean, you could make the argument that he's already played him. Just with a different name. But, I don't know. I had this idea of a one-shot comic, like, if I only had one time to write him. I had thought about this, what do you call it? Like a support group for people who have lost family members to horrific crimes. And a couple of them, or maybe one of them, at least the focus of the story, had lost, his dad or brother to Punisher. And then he finds himself being followed by the Punisher. And the story would, be, it would kind of, center about, what goes on between those two. Because, I don't know, writers of the Punisher keep thinking, well, thank God henchmen never have families or people close to them or anything like that. Although you can make, that argument about any, the only time I ever saw henchmen have family was in Austin Powers.
Right. I love that bit.
No one cares about the henchmen.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing could be, especially with Matt Murdock, right? Because his dad died by working for the Kingpin. Sometimes you have this situation where these guys don't have a choice but to work for these crooks.
Yeah.
And sometimes they write the Punisher he's well too aware of that stuff, and I'm just no, fuck that noise. He's not I don't honestly think Frank Castle, with his whole idea of he's in a war, would take the time to research his enemy in that way.
He would only research them on how to destroy them, not anything else.
Yeah, I don't honestly believe that Frank Castle would look into why these particular guys are working for this crime boss. I feel like he would just kill them indiscriminately. It wouldn't even matter to him if they were in a situation where, I don't know, their family was at risk if they didn't do this. That idea of someone's being brought in on a heist and they don't want to do it, but the guy running the whole heist has one of their family members as hostage if they don't.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't think that Frank Castle would look into that side of things. I think he would kill them indiscriminately.
Of course not. And we've seen villains who kill their henchmen for little to no reason. So hey, that's a stressful job. Once you get in it, and you can't get out, and you can't screw up. I'm oh great, okay, great, I'm stuck in this. So it's
or if one of them was a CI or just anything like that, that could be really fascinating if the Punisher killed them, and then you just have him dealing with that. And I don't think he would. I think he's too far gone to care. A lot of writers just don't want to approach this kind of stuff, and I think that's a little. It's weak sauce. It's weak sauce that they don't want to deal with those questions. I'm you really should have something that deals with these questions. And I'm sure there's probably something that's done it to one extent or another. I don't read a ton of Punisher in the comics, so I'm not aware of it. But that'd be something to take up if it hasn't been.
Also, what drives me crazy is when I keep seeing him get the best of superheroes who are far greater than he is. Garth Ennis used to do this a lot because Garth Ennis hates superheroes. Every once in a while he'll deny it, fuck you, I've read your stories, man. Just admit that you hate superheroes. And because he's a great writer, but whenever he writes superheroes, he writes them as fucking cartoon idiots. And Punisher was basically a source of like, doing that. Like, he made, he routinely got the best of Spider-Man and Wolverine and Daredevil and stuff like that, and this kill the Marvel Universe bullshit.
That was so stupid.
It's stupid. like Deadpool and Squirrel Girl. Okay, those are comedies. So okay. But yeah, when he interacts with real heroes, I do enjoy. There's a Peter David Hulk issue where they run into each other, and it's great because Punisher doesn't know who he is. He's in his Mr. Fix-It persona. So, he pulls out literally every weapon he can in full 90s glory and, starts shooting and, he just ruins his suit. And the fight ends off panel because he just basically flicks him in the face, knocks him out. And then, recently, in the most recent Defenders. I don't know if you read that one.
No, I haven't been reading that book.
It's great. He starts to interfere with what they're doing, and Luke Cage just grabs him and just holds him, and that's it. And the fight's over. He grabs some acid out of his jacket and throws it on him, and it just ruins his shirt.
That's funny.
It's so funny because Luke Cage, you hit me with acid? You had acid on you? And Daredevil is right there, and he says he's a psychopath. Psychopaths have acid on them. And by the way, it's a great scene because Daredevil is just enjoying the shit out of the moment. And because he the scene starts with him kind of kicking the Punisher down, and then Luke Cage just grabs him, and it's just all over.
That's funny.
And Luke Cage even tells him, you should retire and get a family. It just makes him go insane about it. And he even, starts that speech, I go where you guys go. And Daredevil literally interrupts him and goes, yeah. You're so impressive. I mean, I love how much Bendis doesn't seem to respect the awesomeness that is the Punisher. It's great.
It's interesting to talk about kind of... I do feel it is a Trinity of Marvel, though. Since you mentioned Daredevil, Punisher, and Spider-Man kind of are this weird trinity in the street level of the Marvel Universe.
I would say so.
Where, they've have this weird interaction and kind of, commodity or what... Or not commodity. And just...
Continuity? Community?
Yeah, this weird relationship between the three of them where, Daredevil's kind of the man in the middle. Spider-Man obviously has no fucking interest in, Spider-Man's probably thought about killing his villains, I'm sure, but, he's too young to really have dwelled on it that much. Matt Murdock has, really struggled with the issue, but because he wants to be a good Catholic, he won't do it because thou shalt not kill. And Punisher's the guy who's no, I'm gonna fucking kill everyone. And they all, live in the same neighborhood. And I find that kind of relationship that the three of them have, where they're often running into each other and having to deal with each other and just being all doing roughly the same thing, trying to clean up crime in this very small section of New York City.
Yeah, you'd think it'd be done by now. Yeah.
Well, that's the joke about New York, is how the hell are there still bank robberies in Marvel's New York when everybody fucking lives there? The Fantastic Four lives right down the street from the Avengers Tower. How the shit is there a bank robbery in that city?
Well, the good news for bank robbers is the Fantastic Four really don't get involved in bank robberies very much.
Just they're every superhero's in New York City, though. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. That is the one thing that DC has over Marvel. It's okay, their heroes are a little more spaced out in their fake cities, so it's a little more believable.
Yeah.
But, there was a good while where every fucking person was in New York. Except maybe Hulk and...
Great Lakes Avengers.
Great Lakes Avengers. And fucking Ghost Rider even went to New York after the Danny Ketch Ghost Riders in Cypress Hill.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just one of those things where like those three have kind of an interesting relationship where they're all trying to achieve mainly the same thing, just in radically different ways. And so they kind of have this interaction, this play-by-play off of each other that I always find really fascinating whenever they appear on page together.
Listen, let me ask you something. I've been wondering about this lately. Batman has all of his equipment and resources because he's rich, and he has a huge range of what he can do because of his power. Where does Punisher get his guns?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because that shit is not legal.
Yeah, because last I checked, guns are expensive. And he doesn't have a job.
Yeah, and that shit is nowhere near... Like, what I think it is he will take money from, like, drug lords and stuff that he kills over. So that's, I think, where he finances a lot of his stuff from.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, leaving the money to... Because he doesn't care about convictions, he just kills the people, right? So, like, instead of leaving the money as evidence like a lot of superheroes do, I think he just takes it. And sometimes, like, I vaguely remember him, like, giving some of that money back to the families affected by the people he's killed. Which, okay,
well, not
whatever.
too much. He needs that AK.
Yeah, like, I think the justification has always been that he steals the money and uses that to fund his guns. But this brings up a really good question. Who the fuck's he getting these guns from? Because it has to be an illegal operation, in which case, isn't he helping to fund the things that are getting guns on the streets that are killing innocent people?
Yeah, I don't think he thinks that far.
I don't think the writers think that far ahead through it.
Well, that's out of universe reason. That's the out of universe reason. The in universe reason is I don't think he cares.
That'd be an interesting point.
I think he's just mad. I think he's just angry, and this is the only thing he wants to do. That's why I always kind of find him a little suspicious in his motivations. Like, I don't think you're Batman with guns. I just think you're like killing.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe,
I agree with that.
Yeah, maybe you can't even get an erection unless you do it.
Okay, well, I think I'm pretty good talking about the character at that point. I don't need to dive into the Punisher's sexual frustrations. All right, let's go ahead and go on to the recommendations part of this show. I've been talking it up. I really, really recommend Jason Aaron's Punisher Max series. That's Punisher Kingpin, Punisher Max Kingpin, Punisher Max Bullseye, and I think the third volume's called Punisher Max Punisher, Punisher Max Frank Castle. Those are the only 3 volumes I read, but they are really solidly written and are more of a character study than they are a thing that glorifies the Punisher. If you read those as someone who does not like the Punisher for the reasons we've described, read those because they do not glorify anything he's doing. They show why he's just as bad as the people he's fighting in a really fascinating way. That's
a good recommendation. The only real run I've read of the Punisher was the Garth Ennis run, particularly the Welcome Back Frank run, which is mostly just hilarious. That's part of the reason why I read it. Was that it's funny. I mean, I got you that, and he was able to write it. He was able to write Punisher in character, but still make the story funny, which I think is good writing. Also, he wrote his Vietnam experiences in a story called Born, which I actually found some of the parts of it horrifying. I would probably recommend those 2 runs.
Okay, cool. And then just really briefly, is there like a particular design for the Punisher that you think looks really cool?
I tend to like the less superhero-ish version, like the kind I've been kind of seeing a lot, where he basically just has the skull shirt, and it's like kind of like soldier pants. Mm-hmm. Is that a technical term? That sounds right.
Yeah, that's the technical term. Sorry, Mannose, I need you to bring it down a little bit. We don't have, the audience full of tacticians and military guys that you have.
Yeah,
I need you to use the layman's terms here.
And in the recent Defenders issue, he showed up, and he had the costume, but he also had this kind of green military jacket. over it. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. He wasn't even trying to make it all black. He just put on what felt comfortable to him. So I think the more kind of broken down, the more kind of like Kit Bash look, less superhero-ish look, because when he first came out, he looked like a superhero with a gun.
With the white boots. Oh, the white boots.
The white boots and the white gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that looks good for him.
The one that like drives me crazy is when like the teeth of the skull are like tubes around his belt that I don't even know what they hold. Like It looks like he's carrying around like change. But like that always looks really bad. I always hate that. I agree. I like when it's just really minimalist. T-shirt, trench coat, all black, guns. Yeah. I think that looks. I like the trench coat. I don't like the bullet belt across the chest or anything like that. I like the idea is just kind of all hidden in like pockets in the coat. I think that just looks efficient. It looks very street warrior kind of thing. I think that's the best character design they've done for him.
I agree.
No thanks for the go-go boots. It would be
like his
so
Netflix, look too with the crew cut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just really like the take on the character on the Netflix show.
Yeah, totally. I would kill to see the live-action version of the Go-Go Boots Punisher costume. That would be amazing.
That would be quite interesting. Like, have him show up in the Spider-Man Homecoming sequel.
Yes, that please just take my money.
This is the Marvel Universe MCU Punisher, and that's the MCU Spider-Man. Let's have them meet.
Yeah, it could work.
Let's see these two meet.
Totally. All right, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Realist.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.